welcome to the Aurora vest tutorial. In this tutorial you will learn how to work the stitch used in this vest. You will also learn how to do the short rows at the hem, how to do all decreases for the shaping, and how to work the Intarsia Colorwork at the back. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy this. See you next time. The pattern starts using a crochet cord. If you don't know how to make a crochet cord, I recommend you look at this video that I'm tagging over here, and I will teach you how to make this lovely cord. This is an alternative way of starting a project in crochet. What it does is that it creates this lovely edging at the bottom. It's really nice and elastic. So it gives you lots of freedom at the bottom of your project, especially with something like this that's work bottom up. And it creates this lovely edging. So when you work on it, we're going to, so this is the end of the crochet cord. I'm going to chain one and turn. That's going to be my turning chain. And then when I work over the crochet cord, I'm going to use this front loop, sorry. So the front loop is the one that's closer to me. That means that these two loops are going to be left unworked and at the bottom of my work, and it will create a very lovely edge at the bottom of which I can work on for the edging. So at the beginning of the panel, you're going to work short rows off of this crochet cord that you're going to make. So I'm going to first work the short rows with you. I've obviously made it smaller, but the instructions are set up for however many stitches that you have. So this will help you understand the stitch pattern and how to work the short row. So remember, whenever you work off the crochet cord, you're always going to work on the front loop only, okay? All right, so the pattern says to do extended single crochet, chain one, skip one until 13 stitches from the end of the row. So an extended single crochet is done like this. Insert your hook, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through one loop, yarn over and pull through two loops. That is my extended single crochet. Chain one, skip one stitch, and then I do that again. One, pull through two, chain one, skip one stitch, and again extended single crochet. So I'm going to do that until I have 13 stitches left. Chain one and skip one. So this one is skipped, which means that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And that one is skipped. So in the next one, I will single crochet one and turn. That means that I have 12 stitches unworked. Okay, now I'm going to chain one and turn my work. And on this side, I'm going to work the same extended single crochet. However, I'm going to work it central. That means that I have to find the V on my stitches, and that can be a little bit tricky. And this is why I'm using a thicker yarn than fingering weight yarn, so that you can see it a little bit clearer. Now, extended single crochets are a little messy, right? So this is our stitch, right? Now, these two lines right here are the front B. But that little loop on the inside in between, that's one side of the V on the wrong side. So what we're going to do is insert our hook right in between those so that on the other side we also catch that V. It's really hard to see it on the first row because everything's a little bit looser, but as we work them a little bit more, you're going to start noticing the pattern of working in the center of the stitch. Now, if you find it difficult to identify the right side and the wrong side, you can look at the edge. So this is going to be the right side of your row. So we worked row one on the wrong side, or you can simply place a marker so that you know which one is the right side and the wrong side. Okay, so we're going to work central extended single crochet, chain one, skip one, all along. But we're going to skip the first stitch and the first chain space. And then I'm going to work my first stitch right here. So there are my two little strands, and I'm going to go right in between these two. And as you can see, I use this part of the hook, not the head, because I find that easier to make space. And I work my extended single crochet right there. Okay, chain one, skip one. I will always work extended single crochets over other extended single crochets, and then chain one, skip one over the chain spaces. And I'm going to do this until 13 stitches from the end of the row again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, there you go. I went one past 13. And then I'm going to do a central single crochet in the next stitch. So not extended single crochet. And again, I'm going to work right in the middle. And that's it. So remember, this is a small sample of what your work will look like, right? And I will leave these 12 stitches unworked. In this case, the chain spaces also count like stitches. So I have 1 stitch, then 2 that chain space, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you can't really see them at the front because they're a bit messy, you can always turn your work upwards like this, and you can see the loops much clearer. The larger loops are the extended single crochets, and the smaller loops are the chains. Okay, that really helps me to understand where my stitches are. So if you ever have a question, just bloop, twist your work over so that you can see them from above. All right, so now you're going to chain one, turn your work. We're going to skip the single crochet, that first stitch and that first chain space. And now we're going to work central extended single crochet until the end of the previous row, which is this one. So in my case, I only have to do 1 extended single crochet. And in the center, right? So a central one. You can start, you're going to start seeing the pattern a little more. Oh, look, you can see it at the back, those V's right there. Okay, and then chain 1. And now I'm going to central single crochet in single crochet from the previous 2 rows below. So not this one, but here, right there. So that one is attached to my crochet cord. That's where I'm going to work my single crochet. Okay. And now I am going to work onto the crochet cord, making sure to work on the front loop only. All right. So I am going to chain 1, skip 1 from the crochet cord, and then do an extended single crochet in next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and a single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, now chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to leave these last 8 stitches unworked. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to skip this single crochet and the chain space, and I'm going to work central extended single crochets. And just like before, I'm going to go in between these two. And so you see how there's these two, and then that little loop on the inside, it's kind of on the back of your work. So you want to go in between these. So you'll have 2 loops on the left side of your hook and 2 loops on the right side. And that is where you want to work it, so that on the other side, you also have those 2 V's. And then continue. It says, work in pattern, so extended single crochet on the center, chain 1, skip 1 until the end of the previous row. So you can see it a little bit better. There is the V of my stitch, and in there I have to find the other V on the other side. You see how I'm right in the middle? Now an extended single crochet has 2 V's, has the bottom one and the top one. I like to work in the bottom one. In the bottom one at the front and in the bottom one at the back. Okay. chain one, and now I am at the end of my previous row, so I'm going to work one single crochet in the single crochet from the previous 2 rows, which is right here, if you can see it. So I'm going to put it right on the side of that stitch, chain one, skip one, and then I'm going to work central extended single crochet in next stitch of row 1 right there, chain one, skip one, and then a central single crochet, not extended, in the next stitch. Okay, so as you can see, the stitches at the end are only single crochets because we want it to be a little bit smaller than the extended stitch. Chain one and turn, and now we're moving on to row 5, which means to repeat row 3. So we're going to do the same thing where we chain one, skip the first stitch, skip the first chain space, and then start working in the center of the next stitches until the end of the row over here, making sure to do our chain one, skip one. So extended single crochet there, chain one, skip one. We're going to pass through a single crochet, which as well is going to be worked in the center, chain one, skip one, and then continue in every stitch. Now remember to catch it on both sides, that V, okay? So that your work looks very, very nice on both sides. Okay, by the time you get to a few rows up, you're going to be seeing those V's a lot easier. And you can start noticing how they line up. Chain one, and then I am at the end of my previous row. I will just chain one, and then I will work a single crochet on the side of that single crochet from 2 rows before, chain one, skip one, extended single crochet in crochet cord, remember on the front loop on the crochet cord, chain one and single crochet, skip one on the chain of course, and I have 4 unworked stitches. And then for row 6 I will repeat row 4 again, but leaving 4 empty stitches over here. So chain one, skip the first stitch, skip the first chain space, and continue working extended central extended single crochets, chain one, show you one more time. So there is my V at the bottom of the stitch, and I want to go inside that one and grab that loop that you can see in the middle, because that one is the other side of the V on the wrong side of my work, or on the other side of my work. And if I get used to always grabbing that loop on the other side, then the fabric can basically be reversible, and it doesn't really matter if you're working on the right side or the wrong side. You won't have any trouble. And it does look a little bit different on each side or each row because it's worked on different sides, but it doesn't make that much difference that is super noticeable. Okay, I'm at the end of my row, so I will chain one, single crochet on the side of the single crochet, chain one, skip that stitch, that chain space, sorry, and then work in my next one, and central extended single crochet, chain one, skip my chain space and work on my next stitch, a single crochet, just a single crochet at the end, and now I have 1 chain space, 1 stitch, 1 chain space, 1 stitch, so 4 stitches at the end of my row. Chain one and turn, and just like before, we're going to repeat row 3 all the way until the end of my crochet cord on this side. So skip the first stitch, skip the first chain space, and we go with extended single crochet in the center of the stitch, chain one and skip one. And you are starting to see those V's getting in line, and that looks super pretty. Okay. I am at the end of my row, chain 1, and then I will do a single crochet on the side of this stitch. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, extended single crochet, chain 1, and then on the last stitch I will make a single crochet. There are no more empty stitches on my crochet cord. Now on row 8, which is the last one of my short rows, I will do the same until the end, but I will not be skipping any stitches at the beginning anymore because there's not going to be any more short rows after that. So I'm going to be working on the very first stitch with an extended single crochet in the center. So central extended single crochet. And this is my row 8. So I will get in there. Chain 1, skip 1. And continue with my central extended single crochets. Even when I'm working on a single crochet in a single crochet, you still have to work in the center of that stitch, which just means finding that V and working inside of it. Okay, so I am at the end of my row, so I will chain 1 at the end. That's the pattern. And I will find that single crochet from 2 rows below, and I will work a central single crochet there. Oopsie. Chain 1, skip my chain space, work on the next stitch. Chain 1, and then just like before, in my last stitch I will work a single crochet, central single crochet. Now this is a little tricky because it's hard to find the V's in these ones, but it's right there. Okay, chain 1, and that's it. That's the end of the short row. So as you can see, it makes a lovely little shape there. And this is my right side because you can see that nice edge from the crochet cord, while on the wrong side it's not really there. Now that I have shown you how to do the short rows, I'm going to work another row in pattern so that you can see how that's done, but I will also do some color changes. So if you're working the front panel, you don't need to worry about any color changes, but if you're working the back panel, you will have done the short rows in contrasting color A, which means that you will start putting the other contrasting color, and depending on where you change colors, the color changes will look differently. So I'm going to work a few stitches in this color. So remember, when you work your central extended single crochets, you have to go inside the V on both the front and the back. Chain 1, skip 1. So remember, this is the V, and then that little loop on the inside, we want to go to the right of that one, so that at the back we also cut that V. Okay, so in Intarsia color changes, the change of color happens on the stitch prior to the new color, which means that if my last 4 stitches are supposed to be a new color, I'm going to be using this green, then I have to make the change on this 5th stitch from the end, which happens to be an extended single crochet in the center of the stitch. All right, so I'm going to work, so I'm at my chain, I'm going to work 1 more extended single crochet in the center, and then chain 1. Now on this stitch, I'm going to make my change of color. Something to consider that's very important in Intarsia is, are you on the right side or the wrong side? In this case, I am working a wrong side row, and I can tell because of this edging at the bottom. As you can see, the right side is much neater than the wrong side. It's a bit knobbly. on that crochet cord. So since I'm working on the wrong side, I will consider that on my color changes, and I will tell you why. So the color change happens by inserting your hook into the stitch. You pull through, you yarn over, pull through one, and then when you have 2 loops on your hook, you pick up your new color. Oopsie. And then you simply pull through those 2 loops to use it. Now, because I'm working on the wrong side, I want to leave all of my ends on the wrong side. So instead of just dropping my old color at the back of my work, I have to move it to the front of my work. So I will show you that color change again by moving that yarn to the front of my work. So this is the hardest thing to remember, but you do need to get used to moving it so that there are no weird lines on the front. So I've inserted my hook, pulled through, yarn over, pull through 1 loop. Now move my yarn to the front of my work, and I hold on to it there with my thumb while I grab my new color and pull through. This will keep all my ends on the wrong side of my work and not the right side of my work. Now that I've done that, I will simply chain 1 and continue in my stitch pattern. So I chain 1 because that's the stitch pattern, okay? You wouldn't do that if you're working on any other stitch. And you want to be especially careful on the first and last stitch of the row because they can be a little bit tricky to enter. But there you go. That's my first color change. Now I'm going to do it again on the other side. And remember, this is a right side row, so that's going to look a little bit differently. So let's say that the first 8 stitches have to be green. And that means that on the 8th stitch, I will make my color change. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now that I am onto my 7th stitch, on the 8th stitch, I need to make the color change. The 8th stitch is actually a chain, which means that to change on a chain, you simply drop your color and pick up the new one and chain, just like that. And then continue working in your stitch pattern, which is a central extended single crochet, chain 1, etc. And continue on like that. Now this chain might be a little bit loose, but when you use the yarn on the following row, that's going to tighten up. Okay, and I don't know if you noticed, but I carried my yarn along the back on those rows where my pink yarn was just hanging there. That keeps the wrong side a little bit neater. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can simply pull the yarn from where you left it before, but this keeps it a little bit neater and just less messy. So I'm going to continue working to the end of my row. Okay, so this is the end of my row with my color changes. I'm going to work one more row with color changes, and then I will start showing you how to do the decreases. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more rows actually just with color changes so that you see a little bit more of how I keep it on the wrong side, how I keep my ends on the wrong side, and how I wrap the yarn inside my stitches. This is a chain stitch color change, so I will simply drop my yarn on the wrong side, pick up my new color and pull through. Now I can continue working the next stitch with my new color, and I will make sure to wrap this line of yarn inside my stitches so that it's not so visible or so messy. But because it's on the wrong side, it won't be incredibly noticeable. this is now the right side row, and I'm going to make a color change a little bit ahead. Now this is where I left my pink color, so I'm just going to wrap it around that stitch that I'm working to carry it along as I go. Again, to keep the back a little bit neater. Okay, I'm going to make a color change in this following stitch. So I simply insert my hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through one, drop my old color, pick up my new one, keeping it always at the back of my work, which is the wrong side of my work, and continue. Alright, so that is how we do Intarsia color changes in this stitch pattern. Now in places in the chart, like this row that I'm showing you here, where you have more than one section of the same color, you will simply insert another live yarn of that same color wherever you need it. Okay, if you don't want to cut your yarn because you have limited amount of yarn, then simply use the other end of the skein or the ball so that you can use them at the same time. So for example, I have this little ball of yarn right here, so I can use the outside end. I can use this little end, but if I look for it in here, I can find the other end. So that way I will use them both at the same time and have two live strands of yarn. You will get a few more tangles doing this instead of separating into two bobbins or two separate balls of yarn. However, because the sections in which you have repeats are quite minimal, there's not that many stitches and there's not that many live strands of yarn happening at the same time, and it only happens for a little time, then the tangles won't matter that much because you can just cut them when you're finished and then you are done with that. Okay, so now that we know color changes, I'm going to forget about this green color and I'm going to continue with the pink. And I'm going to show you how to do the decreases at the beginning and at the end of the row. So for the decreases, you're going to need markers. I'm going to use 2 markers. And the markers are going to mark the selvage. I don't know how to say that. A selvage it's a word that's used in knitting at all, and it basically marks the edges that are not going to be changed, and the decreases are going to be worked after that edge, that selvage. So it's going to be on the 3rd extended single crochet or the 5th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my 3rd central extended single crochet. That's where we're going to place our markers because that's where our edging is going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here it is. And just like I told you before, if you're not sure about where your stitches are, just look at it from the top. And it's so much easier to see. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, and this is where my marker is on that 5th stitch because that's where my edging finishes. And it's also obvious that these little tiny loops, those are chains, and the bigger ones are my extended single crochets. Okay, so all decreases are started on the wrong side. And the first kind of decrease is done by simply skipping the chain of the stitch pattern. So you're going to work all the way to your marker, including the mark stitch. So work the selvage, whatever that's called. I'm going to take away this marker and then work the stitch. And then PM one more time. Now normally, according to my stitch pattern, I'm supposed to chain 1 here, but I'm not going to chain. I'm going to omit the chain and simply go on to my next central extended single crochet and work 1 stitch there. Okay, so I have officially decreased 1 stitch because I omitted that chain. And I will do the same thing at the other end. Okay, so I've been working in pattern until one stitch before my marker, which is a chain. I will omit that chain and I will take my marker and then work in that stitch next. But skip the chain space, right? We are skipping the chain space. And I will place my marker again. If you don't need a marker, if you think that it's easy for you to see where your selvage is, then don't worry about the marker. I'll just place it there because I know some people need the extra visual guidance. Okay, so this is how the decreases are done on the wrong side. Now the right side ones are a little bit more complicated, but also quite simple and straightforward. So instead of working to the marker, I'm going to work to the stitch before the marker, which is that chain space. Okay, so I've worked my chain before my marker, so I'm going to remove this marker, and now what I'm going to do is work a central extended single crochet 2 together. It's a mouthful, but we are simply going to join these 2 stitches together in one. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, again making sure I go through the V on both sides and pull through. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next stitch, insert my hook, making sure I go through the V and pull through. And now that I have 3 loops on my hook, I yarn over and pull through 2 loops. I yarn over and pull through 1 loop. So this is a right side row decrease. And again, if you want to keep your selvage marker, then put it back on and continue in pattern. So that's chain 1 and central extended single crochet. And you're going to repeat that on the other end with the stitch before the marker and your marked stitch. All right, so here I am. This is my stitch before my marker. So I will make a 2 together there too, a decrease. So just like before, I don't skip that chain, by the way. You need to make sure that you make that chain. And we're going to make our decrease. So insert my hook into 1 stitch, pull through, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 1 loop. And again, I place my marker again on that stitch and chain 1 and continue in pattern to the end of my row. So I have now decreased 2 more stitches, and this is a right side row decrease. Now, I'm going to show you something that's very, very important about these decreases. As you can see, the stitch pattern kind of creates these vertical lines. So when you start going upwards and you start decreasing, when you get to this decrease stitch, this 2 together stitch, you have these 2 V's that kind of come together. So when you work on the next row, on the following row, when you go inside your stitch, you have the option of going inside this V and inside this V. You want to go into the V that follows the line that you're working on the selvage, not the other row, not the other stitch or the other column of stitches. So I follow this one, which is my 1, 2, 3rd row, 3rd column. Follow, 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 and I'm going to be inserting my hook in this V, not this one, but this one. On the other end, follow, 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 1, 2, 3. So this is my selvage column. So I will follow that one, and I have the option of going into this one or this one that's in here. I will go into this one because this is the one that follows the line. Okay, so I will show you how to do that other wrong side row with a decrease as well. I will work in pattern to the marker, chain 1. Now this is my marked stitch, so I will remove my marker, and on the wrong side it looks very messy, but This is one end on the V, and the other end of the V kind of gets lost with the two together stitch with a decrease stitch. So you simply just put your hook in there somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. What matters is where does it come out on this end. So remember the two V's that you have? You have this one where my hook is in, and you have this other one, which is a little bit trickier to come in. But when you're working in this direction, you can see that line. So I want to follow that direction. So I will go into this one and make my extended single crochet there. And as you can see, that line is followed really, really neatly. And I'm going to do the same thing at the other end. I will now work in pattern and do the same thing at the other end. Oh, whoopsie, I was supposed to do a decrease, right? So I will not work in pattern. I will omit this chain and continue in pattern after that. These decreases are going to be done at the underarms and at the neckline as well. All right, so this is my last stitch in pattern. I will omit that chain and I will work on my following stitch, which is where my marker was. Again, the wrong side, you can't really see the V very well, but all that matters is that on the right side, I am coming in the right V, which is this one. And I know that because of this column of stitches, I want that to match there. And I continue in pattern, placing my marker on my selvage stitch. So as you can see with the decreases on the right side, this column of stitches is going to be a lot more pronounced than on the wrong side. You can still see it on the wrong side, but it's not as neat as on the right side because of those two together stitches, those decrease stitches. You can see them right here. So if you ever need to count your rows, this will help you identify those decrease rows. So if you have one of these, joined like this stitches, that means that you did a decrease. That means that the previous row is also a decrease row, but on the wrong side, right? So you can see them on this side too, right there. And this is the way they look like on the actual design worked with the fingering weight yarn. So you can see those V's going up and those V's going up, and then the other ones kind of disappear into those stitches. And I can find the decrease stitches right there, right there, right there. So it's quite obvious where they are, but because I've worked on the right V of those two, then that column stays marked really well. And on this one, I've worked on the left V of those two. And I've marked my V. All right, I hope that was super helpful and that you're enjoying making this pattern.